got an action figure. So figured I would show you guys this.
You're like a real life superhero, Kyle.
The most boring superhero ever.
I hope this doesn't come across as insulting to anybody, but I feel like in order to take something you've written and translate it to do well on LinkedIn, you have to write for the lowest common denominator.
Wow, you really came in spicy today. How big's your team?
Well, I have all 17 of my children downstairs typing next week's piece.
You are an empire these days.
Can you pull up the Walter White meme? I'm in the empire business.
They'll look at your biography that you put on LinkedIn, and if your LinkedIn post is highly related to that, they'll treat you as someone credible around that topic. And for me, I use real life growth advice, playbooks, and case studies.
I don't know what you do.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson share smart takes on growing revenue and running a company, pricing, unit economics, AI, leadership, candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, and CROs, or anyone else aspiring to climb to the C-suite. This is Mostly Growth.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
As a CFO, you're expected to bring clarity to everything, including how your company manages ownership. The tools you use should make that easier, not harder. But when they come with hidden fees, data you can't always trust, and support you can't rely on, you end up with more frustration than clarity. That's where Pulley comes in. Pulley is a cap table management platform built for finance leaders who need accurate, decision-ready data from a system that works for your business, not against it. With Pulley, you get intuitive workflows, audit-ready reporting, and support you can count on, all backed by predictable pricing you can plan around. So you can stay compliant and make smarter decisions about your company's future. Manage everything from fundraise modeling to ASC 718 reporting to custom liquidity programs, all on one trusted platform. Hundreds of high-growth companies like Linear, Fathom, and Runway trust Pulley to help turn ownership into a strategic advantage. And joining them is now easier than ever. You can switch to Pulley in as little as 5 days. And for a limited time, they're offering 25% off your first year. To claim your exclusive offer, visit pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is PULLEY.com/mostlymetrics. Please, guys, I really need this. Pulley.com/mostlymetrics. You just launched a new AI product. The new pricing page looks great. I'm talking crisp. But behind it, last-minute glued code, messy spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries to figure out what to bill. Customers get invoices they can't understand. Engineers are chasing billing bugs. Finance can't close the books. Well, with Metronome, you hand it all off to the real-time billing infrastructure that just works. Reliable, flexible, and built to grow with you. They turn raw usage events into accurate invoices, give customers bills they actually understand, and keep every team in sync in real time. Whether you're launching usage-based pricing, managing enterprise contracts, or rolling out new AI services, Metronome does the heavy lifting so you can focus on your product, not your billing. That's why some of the fastest growing companies in the world like OpenAI and Anthropic run their billing on Metronome. Visit metronome.com to learn more. That's metronome.com.
And welcome back to another episode of Mostly Growth, the mostly serious podcast for anyone who cares about startup growth. And CJ, a few months ago, you told me you got the best swag ever. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, you got hot sauce. Well, I got an action figure. So figured I would show you guys this. Do you see this? It's got my Growth Unhinged logo. It's got a dude with a t-shirt and glasses, his hair slicked back. There's a laptop, a newspaper, and some growth that's up and to the right. Yeah, I don't know if the person in the action figure is the most flattering dude ever, but pretty thoughtful piece of swag.
It's better than skinny Drew Carey. I mean, that mug was really something.
I will take that. This is from the crew at Verisol. They're a fraud prevention platform. I hooked them up with their Series A investor, and so they sent me that as a thank you, which was super nice of them.
Wait, I want one. I don't know what I can do for you or potentially add any value whatsoever, but I really want one for my background now.
You would be the perfect person to give something like that to. See, I got ridiculed for it by my husband, who promptly posted it on Instagram as a way to haze me.
I think he's jealous. You're like a real life superhero, Kyle.
like the most boring superhero ever.
What type of laptop did they give you?
So it's got an Apple logo. I'm a PC guy. I've got a ThinkPad.
ThinkPad people unite.
On the spirit of us being action figures, I figured we could do a bit of a year in review across our newsletters and podcast and give folks a peek behind the curtains. How does that sound?
It's kind of weird. You don't have a boss to give you your end of year review, so I guess we can just give it to ourselves right now.
This is your performance review, CJ, and I've been taking notes about all the times you were late.
Dude, nobody's harder on CJ than CJ. Actually, Carl's a lot harder on CJ.
Oh, yeah, I would guess that. Well, so you went full time around this time last year, right?
Yeah, in end of January.
What's been the biggest surprise for you in the last year?
I would say the biggest surprise is I'm not in front of my computer as much as I used to be. Now, I've discovered there's a huge difference between being in your business and on your business. And at the same time, if you added up all the time I'm thinking about work, it would be probably twice as many hours as it was last year. But it doesn't mean I'm like sitting here typing or trying to come up with something. I don't know if you've felt this since you've gone full time, but like you truly have to optimize for the hours in which you were most productive. So like as a CFO, I could brute force whatever I had to get done. A lot of it wasn't like completely creative work. It's not like I was trying to come up and with a fundraising deck or something, and you can just put more hours in. But in this type of work, the number of hours typing or recording or writing that you put in doesn't necessarily equate to what you get out of it.
How do you handle that? Are you writing in the mornings? Are you finding yourself writing on weekends or late at night?
So I write 7 days a week, but like I said, I'm not writing for 8 hours straight. I do it when it's convenient for me.
You're writing 7 days a week with 3 kids?
Yeah, my wife is very supportive of me. And a lot of the times it's when other people are asleep or not up yet. But yeah, Saturday mornings, if we have a dog walker come, my wife will take the kids to the gym and they have like a daycare thing there. And that's when I do a lot of the writing because I have an issue that comes out every Sunday. Some people work in the restaurant industry and they have to work Saturday nights. I work in the newsletter industry where I have to write every Saturday morning and I have to update the multiples because the market is closed.
You've got the dreaded brunch shift after a late Saturday night shift.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do something every day, but it doesn't mean it's like 12 hours of work.
See, we're totally different on that. Like I'm working a Monday through Friday job. Maybe it's because I'm like newer to the solopreneur thing. I also do some consulting work and like my consulting clients are working Monday through Friday, but I could probably take advantage of the flexible schedule a little bit more than I do.
I think the 9 to 5 is just a byproduct of the industrial revolution where people had to be in factories building something and they had to measure your productivity based on you being there. And even I'm a year in and I still feel guilty sometimes of I want to leave my desk at 3 p.m. and take my dog for a walk, something like that. But like that is the benefit of working for myself. Now, in order to get to that point, like I said, I have to optimize for the creative moments. And Ben can vouch for this. I don't take any meetings before 1 p.m., which sounds completely wild to some people. Like they start taking meetings at 8 a.m. I will not talk to you until after 1 p.m. Eastern because I have to put out 4 newsletters a week and now we're up to 4 podcasts. Like I will not have any output if I don't.
4 newsletters a week and 4 podcasts. That is a lot of content.
Yeah, mostly Metrics comes out 3 times a week and Looking for Leverage comes out once. And then we do 2 Run the Numbers and we do 2 of the show.
How much time does a newsletter take you?
Some of the best ones I can write in 45 minutes. Now, I hate saying that out loud.
Close your ears, readers.
I don't have many skills in life. I get lost in large parking garages. I can't cook and I have no sense of fashion, but I can write a banger piece in 45 minutes. Now, people equate the amount of time it takes to write something with the quality, which I vehemently, which I can't pronounce or spell, disagree with. There's this story I think I've told it on the podcast before, but of Pablo Picasso in the coffee shop. Have I told you this before, Kyle?
You have shared it on this podcast.
I've probably shared it like 3 times.
You were a full dad.
I think when you practice something long enough, you get better at how long it takes you. But I edit up to the moment something goes out. So I get something in 45 minutes to an hour, 80% there, Kyle. But I will edit it on my phone, which is the medium in which the majority of my people receive the product. Constantly, like in 10-minute spurts. up to the day that it's published. Everything goes out at 7:22 Eastern, right? That's the agreed upon time that I have with my readers that you'll get something for all the pieces. I'll be up at 6:30 and do the last pass on my phone, and I make all the edits from there.
Oh my God, that gives me like stress hives just thinking about it. The opposite to your style is the Lenny Rachitsky style. I would think of him as like the OG newsletter writer. He's got over 1 million subscribers. I've done 3 or 4 bylines for Lenny's newsletter, and each of those took me like probably 20 to 30 hours. He is just on a different level in terms of how many pitches result in a topic that he deems interesting enough. And then you write the first draft. He rips it apart. You write a second draft. He does a second kind of rip apart. You're at a third draft. He likes it a little bit better, but he still makes a lot of changes. He is like such a perfectionist. And I think he sees his growth as coming from, he's got a time advantage. Other people have a full-time job and they could never put in the amount of time into a post that he can. So I think he sees his advantage of like, I can use this time to make something the highest quality. I've always respected that of him, and I take something away each time I go through that process with him. I can't say I spend like 30 hours on pieces for my own newsletter, and I think there's significant diminishing returns to a piece when you spend that much time on it. I would rather sink 4 to 5 hours on something and then throw it away and not publish, but then spend 4 to 5 hours on something better than spend 30 to 40 hours on one piece.
And don't get me wrong, if you're doing a deep dive on something benchmarking related, like that piece that we covered with Tropic, the discounting piece that I did with Russell, their CFO, and Justin, their CEO, that one took me like way over 20 hours, whatever that may have taken. And that doesn't even count the input from their side. On average, it doesn't take me that long. But like, I always get the question from people, and you probably get this too, Kyle, how do you put out so much content? And my question back is always like, how do you work the same shitty accounting job for 60 hours a week that you don't like? I don't know. This is just like,
You woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Damn.
I didn't mean it like that. I mean, like, I'm not doing anything else. I don't have another thing to do.
I hear you on that. I go back and forth. Like, there are some times when I'm on a hot streak, I have an unlimited number of ideas of things I could write about. The deeper you are in something, the more you're like, oh, I could do a follow-up piece here, or here, or here, or here. But then sometimes you get into this creative rut. And like for me, it's if a couple pieces in a row don't perform as well in terms of engagement as what I'm used to, I start like second guessing myself and the quality. And then I start thinking about all of my ideas are bad ideas. So I do find that creator burnout and like riding sort of the roller coaster of things being popular and not popular is just really challenging to like maintain the motivation consistently.
And this is where me and you differ, because we'll be texting back and forth about posts, and you'll be like, oh, this one didn't perform as well. That was like my worst post, blah, blah, blah. And you'll ask me like, how'd that post do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't get lost in the minutia of how one post does, because I've tried to change my mentality to, I'm playing this game to continue playing forever. Like the person who checks their stock portfolio every day, I'm going to just make myself a mental pretzel, and it's not going to be healthy. And like, yeah, I still care about the overall open rate. I still care about the number of clicks. But what I'm really trying to go for is the energy that I feel when I write it, knowing that it's good, because I always try to keep in mind that I'm my end audience at the end of the day. Like I'm the demographic that I'm writing for. And if I got value out of it, and then the ultimate metric for me isn't like number of shares. It's just how many people replied back, because that's not even a metric, but to take time out of your day and write something back, that's the most powerful signal to me.
Yeah, I'm totally different. I check my metrics
I know you do.
religiously. It even goes back to when I was in consulting and we would run a survey, like a pricing survey. I'd be checking the number of responses on that survey, like refreshing constantly. It's one of the reasons I can't do an Apple Watch, like I can't do an Oura Ring. Like I can't give myself access to more metrics because I will obsess over them as soon as I give myself access to them. But I think that's part of my secret sauce, is that I care a lot about the performance and quality of each thing I put out. And I will be my own worst enemy if something doesn't perform, which I think stops me from blanketing people with a bunch of spam or bad content and just keeps me kind of looking for that next thing that is going to be, hey, there's an interesting topic I haven't covered before that readers seem to really care about. Let me like switch over there and learn a lot about it. I think it like forces me to keep upping my game.
What do you think your best piece was that you wrote of 2025?
Best could be like, hey, what brought in the most subscribers? Best could be what was viewed the most times. Best could be like what brought me the most energy, or like I was most excited to do it. My most popular piece in the newsletter was a piece that I did not even write myself, although I did pitch the person on writing it. So at least I had the idea. It was this piece about how to use deep research functionality and AI for go-to-market. That's just like kill. I mean, it has so many views. It is insane. But I didn't write that. I don't think of myself as being able to take credit for it. So the piece that I am most proud of from this year is I did a state of B2B go-to-market report where I surveyed about 200 readers around what's working and what's not working in go-to-market. I just feel really proud of that because it seems like I was able to draw insights about the market that I think a lot of people were feeling but didn't have data or words to describe it. And it took something that could be a little bit bland. And honestly, like 200 responses is not even like that much of a sample size. But I was able to take this data set and I think really provide something of like significant value for people as they're figuring out how to review the results of the last year, where to place their bets for next year. This has just been like the gift that keeps on giving for my newsletter. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to make sure I'm continuing to do. Now that took me, to your point about like time, that probably took me more than 40 hours. There's an in-depth report that's like a 35-page PDF. There's a content piece. I collaborated with another writer, Maya from GTM Strategist on it. There's time with the collaboration. There was time for the survey. I lost some subscribers by pushing the survey so many times to them that I got some unsubscribed. So like there was a real cost to doing it, but it was worth it.
That's awesome. It came out great. You can tell that a lot went into it. And I always struggle with that tension too of self-promoting it because inevitably you end up with some unsubscribes, even though it's really good.
What was the piece you're most proud of for this year?
It was also a report. It was the state of the agentic finance stack. I interviewed a ton of founders for that, including 5 of the sponsors for it, where we looked into what's changing within their particular sector. So we looked at 10 different sections of the finance stack, from the ERP to FP&A to cap table management to expense management. And we made market maps for every single one of these. And that went, I don't know if you'd call it viral, but as viral as something that I've created. It got over 4,000 downloads. It had a ton of founders reaching out. That one did really, really good. And that's also been the gift that keeps on giving because people came to me with ideas of where I could take it next year. And I'm excited to do it again in 2026.
Yeah, I think there's a tension with this job of there's only so many times you can do those big investments, those big swings. And also, like, I think the default will be, hey, I'm under pressure to get like a newsletter out. In your case, like 4 newsletters out a week. So there's like the pressure of where you go for something like topical, that's maybe a quick hit that you think will be like a single or a double. And then where do you invest like that extra time for the home run? Because if you invest all that time and you get the topic wrong, then you've just like wasted a ton of effort you could have spent doing something else. And so I find that to be a really challenging part of this job.
Something that I love, but I also hate is some of my pieces, I'll put so much work into it and then I'll tweet out like a meme that was related to it. And that's what does the best. This one probably took me at least 10 hours to write this one piece. It was called The Great AI ARR Illusion. And then I made this stupid little GIF at the end where it was the people from We're the Millers. It got like 700,000 views on LinkedIn. This stupid little meme that took me 2 minutes on my phone. I'm like, wait, this is great. Thank you. But go read the piece. It took me all this time.
I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a weird beast in terms of the results around quality and viewership, I think are like relatively connected in a newsletter. That newsletter is getting delivered to someone's inbox, like they read it or they don't, they share it or they don't. But on LinkedIn, you're at the whims of the algorithm, and like a couple people liking or commenting on your post within a certain amount of time, like that all factors in whether the algorithm promotes it. But I find that's just so much less predictable and completely disconnected from like quality or time. Although I will say, I just passed 100,000 on LinkedIn. So in general, LinkedIn is still going okay for me. And I've gotten okay with the fact that the high quality stuff is not necessarily what's going to do well on LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, like it's kind of a slot machine and some things are going to really break out. And, you just got to play enough times to win enough times.
I hope this doesn't come across as insulting to anybody, but I feel like in order to take something you've written and translate it to do well on LinkedIn, you have to write for the lowest common denominator.
Wow, you really came in spicy today. I don't go fully lowest common denominator, but you have to have like an eye-catching image that stops the scroll. You have to have like a hook. It is hard to do that for something that's like thoughtful and nuanced. Like a hot take can be much more popular.
That's what I'm saying. You have to tap in this how people feel, not exactly how they think, in order for it to do well. And maybe below how they feel, it has something that's well thought out. But that's what frustrates me because I hate trying to poke the bear in order to get people to read my stuff. I'm just not good at that.
One pro tip for folks. So I had a member of LinkedIn's team reach out to me and offer to give me some coaching on LinkedIn, and had this session recently. And some of the advice she gave, one of them was, so I have very consistent branding in my visuals, and they're for my newsletter mostly. But she thinks that actually might backfire on me because people will see a visual and think it's something that I've already shared or that they've seen it in their feed before. And so they'll ignore it because of that. And she was also saying that LinkedIn does try to connect like what you post to your background. And so they'll look at your profile and like your headline and your like biography that you put on LinkedIn. And if your LinkedIn post is highly related to that, they'll treat you as someone credible around that topic. And otherwise, if you're posting about something different, they will not treat you as credible. And so I've actually updated my headline and my bio to add more of the keywords around things that I write about so that LinkedIn hopefully finds me more credible about those topics.
Did you change it to just like LinkedIn creator?
I noticed Lenny Rachitsky's LinkedIn headline now said something like deeply researched product advice or something, which indicated to me he's trying to highlight like, hey, it's deep research, it's product focus, like he's trying to hit on these topics. And for me, I use real life growth advice, playbooks, and case studies. I might adjust this later on, but my hope is that helps clarify like what I write about and like types of things I'm going to be posting on LinkedIn.
Dude, I like it and I think it's going to work, but I don't know what you do. And so I see other people do this where they're like executive level, energetic, go-to-market specialist negotiator. It just has like all these words in there. And then you have to scroll down like 4 things to see what their actual position is and where they work. I get frustrated when some people do that. It's like, I don't know. Those are just a bunch of words.
I hear you. Well, we'll see how it goes. I can report back. How'd it go subscriber wise? Like, what are the metrics of Mostly Metrics?
The newsletter did about around 1,000 net subscribers each month, which I think past a certain size, it's less about the absolute growth rates. Let's say I went from like 61,000 to 73,000 or something like that. And that's net. So that's after churn. If I can add 1,000 net subscribers every month, I'm really happy because I've always looked at my audience as an influential and valuable audience. And I'm not trying to be everything to everyone, right? It's for finance people working at venture-backed and private equity-backed companies, which are largely tech. It is interesting, though, that the more you talk to those people, other people become interested. So a stat that came out of this is 15% of the audience is now CEOs. I never once set out to write for CEOs, but as a result, those people wanted to listen. More than 10% are investors. I never set out to write from the investor's perspective, but they were interested as a result.
I feel like the CFO might be signing their CEO up.
Looking for leverage, that launched this year. That's not meant to be a big newsletter by any means, but it has, from my count, at least 10% of all the private equity-backed CFOs out there. So it's a small but incredibly influential audience, and it's targeted.
Well, I started the year at a similar subscriber count as you. I was around 62,000 at the beginning of the year. I'm up to 82,000.
Blew the doors off.
Well, yeah, he added 20,000 this year. Last year, I added about 25,000 net subscribers. So I'm unhappy that like the net change is worse. But what I'm noticing, to your point, is like the unsubscribes and the bounces go up as your email list gets bigger. If people change jobs, like, hey, that's a subscriber you lost. If someone is no longer interested in your content because it's not relevant for them, if a startup shuts down, like all of this kind of keeps adding to your list of cancellations every month. And so you have to add more and more new subscribers to offset the losses. And that doesn't really matter if you're at 10,000 subscribers as a starting point. But if your starting point's over 60,000, you got a higher level that you have to overcome. And so I'm making peace with the fact that growth is slowing down as long as I'm consistently growing month over month. But my goal for next year is to get from 82 to 100. So again, a little bit slower growth than this year, but I really want to hit 100.
What most people don't realize is once you get to a certain size, on days you send out an email, you're actually net negative on that day for how many subscribers you have. At least I am.
Yeah, I take it as a big win if I'm positive, because that means that newsletter's done crazy well, but I expect to lose 20 to 50 subscribers on a typical day that I send something. That's actually a pretty small number relative to the size of the audience. But it's a little bit depressing to be like, I spent so much time on this piece and I lost subscribers.
Packy McCormick had my favorite tweet of 2025, and he said, there's nothing more rewarding than hitting send on your most researched piece and instantly having 250 people unsubscribe.
I felt that before.
It's like an if you know, you're like, oh.
So for you, what were the biggest sources of growth? Like, where did the new subscribers come from? Were there specific like things you wrote about or like growth channels you used?
They came from the reports I did. So the first one was the tech stack report, where I surveyed over 1,000 CFOs and finance leaders on what tools they used. That drove a ton of growth. And then the second one was the state of the agentic finance stack, which wasn't a survey, but it was a series of interviews and market maps. And then for the paid audience, what drove the most growth or conversions, I would say, is the annual planning Bible that I pulled together and I made in Canva, which was like 50 pages long.
Nice. Yeah, I found for me, it was AI and go-to-market topics just did super well. And so a lot of those were deep dives, like very how-to. I wasn't trying to get highbrow of like making something overcomplicated or over fancy. It was like literally how to use ChatGPT for go-to-market. We're like, here's 10 real life examples, and here are the prompts and the workflows that people used. I think that idea of like super tactical, that someone could take that and copy and paste what they read and apply it and see if it worked. Like that type of content, I think did just super well this year. So I had, I think about a half dozen pieces that racked up over 100,000 views and over 500 new subscribers. So some of these were around like how to use vibe coding for go-to-market, how to use deep research for go-to-market, how to use AI agents in go-to-market, or how to get recommended by ChatGPT. Those just like consistently performed. I definitely want to do more of that for next year, although I noticed there was a ton of appetite in 2025 for that. My guess is that people are going to feel oversaturated by some of this AI how-to content. People want, something fresh, something new. And so I'm not going to, oversaturate my audience with this content, but it did super well last year.
What people from the outside assume is that the smartest piece wins. And I have found that is absolutely not the case. It's the most tactical piece, even down to like, can you give me a template to go and do this today? That's what does the best.
I have a number of people that I have write bylines, or I'll interview them and kind of co-create a piece with them. Part of it is I know there's people that are operating go-to-market, doing really interesting things that I want to incorporate. And for a lot of those people, like these are really smart people, they have such a hard time getting tactical and how to. They're like, that's not strategic. I'm strategic. This is a really important thing for the company. I'm like, no, but literally, what was the prompt that you use? And getting that level of specificity out of someone is very hard. They either don't remember, don't want to give it away, or don't think it's important. And it's like, no. This is the thing that my readers want to hear about.
It's quite literally the most crucial stuff. And if you have something that's paid, that's what I found drives the most conversions, because giving something to somebody where they can take it, pick it up, and be better at their job, that translates to them making more money. You don't make more money or get promoted just from sounding smart and being strategic. You make more money from being able to create things for your business. I say dope on the table. What's the dope on the table to take a line from the wire that you're creating or giving to somebody that they can show?
Well, so we talked about mostly newsletters. We've also been working on this podcast together. What have you learned from it? We're on what, episode 25 or something now?
Well, the biggest unlock for the company this year was hired Ben full-time. Hello. Yeah, our benevolent creative dictator. And so that was my step to run the numbers to the next level. And I kind of gave Ben the rope-a-dope where he thought he was coming on to do run the numbers. And the week that he joined, I said, hey, how do you feel if I call Kyle up and we had a second show?
He's like, that guy. I did a video with him in the Profit Well headquarters once. Never again. You started as a solopreneur this year, right? And now, less than a year later, how big's your team?
Well, I have all 17 of my children downstairs typing next week's piece.
And your dog is editor-in-chief, overseeing it all.
And Ben knows Wally because he used to work with my wife.
My old coworker.
Yeah. So we got sales guy Matthew, longest tenured contributor. He helps us all make the money and get paid. He's done a wonderful job. He's sold out both newsletters for all of next year. We haven't even started yet, which is incredible. And sold out 80% of the podcast spots, which is awesome. And then we got Ben heading up production. And then he gave a call to Stevie Stoves and we brought on a second producer. So that's been a big unlock. And then we also have Sarah running ops. And then we have Michelle, who I worked with at Parts Tech, helping with the billing and the contracts. And then I'm bringing on Callie to head up the recruiting arm that we're launching next year.
You are an empire these days.
Can you pull up the Walter White meme for this one, Ben? I'm in the empire business.
Yeah, my business is just me. So I will scale myself at some point.
Great margins on that, Kyle.
I'm enjoying the simplicity of it just being myself.
Are you going to feel the anxiety that I felt of sending out a contract at 11:30 at night? And like, am I going to make a typo in this? Or trying to run QuickBooks by yourself and just getting frustrated, or remit sales taxes? Like, what in your mind, what breaks first where you say I need more help?
Well, you've been doing this longer than I have. And so I guess you could tell me when you experience that, and I'll probably get there just a little bit later. I think for me, I am trying to keep it simple. And so if something starts to feel like it's going to break, I go, what is the simplest approach I can take to this? And so even I'm launching a perks offering for readers, for premium readers in the next couple of weeks. And I asked around. There are a bunch of other people that have had like a discount or perk program for their readers. And they're like, oh yeah, I get custom codes for every subscriber, and they subscribe and then they get spun up like these unique codes. And then I can pass the codes on to the advertiser to prove like whether they redeemed it or not, yada, yada, yada. I'm sure that there's value in that, but I was like, this is way too complicated. Can I just get like one code for everyone and we can put a cap on the number of redemptions and I can just put it behind a paywalled page? Like, yes, there's some risk of gamification there. It's not as good for tracking, but it is so much simpler. And so my focus right now is just how do I simplify things? And if something is overly complicated, that's probably a sign that I don't want to sign up for it long term. There are things that I wish I could offload. Anything finance, ops, admin is not my strong suit. I do have an accountant. The sales side of it, because I'm partnering with brands like you are, I have actually not felt like I want to outsource that, and maybe I will change my mind later on it. But to me, part of having a relationship with a brand and advertising in my newsletter is like there's some level of trust with that brand. And I'm also, whether I'm recommending their product or not, I'm kind of essentially endorsing the product by having them in the newsletter. And so I want to get to know the people on the other side of the table, understand their objectives, want to make sure that they're promoting the right things for my audience. I want to have a demo of the product. Like there's a lot that makes this a relationship business. And I'm really hesitant to lose those relationships, at least this early in the process.
No, I don't blame you at all for that. I do think that if I get involved too much in the sales process, I end up wanting to please them to a degree that I'll sign up for bespoke things that don't scale and that you don't need to do to get the deal across the line. And that's what's been great about having someone who's friendly, but also can think about the long-term strategy of what we're selling with Matthew, for me at least. He can tell them, like, just buy the newsletter and the podcast. We start there and then we build a relationship. Because I would get over my skis, like, I'll go speak at that. I'll do this. I'll do that. And then I'm like, you end up with something on your calendar 3 months later. Like, shit, what did I sign up for? Like, I don't know if I can do all this.
I hear you. No, it's very fair advice. What's the one biggest thing you're going to do differently for next year?
I think the biggest challenge in this is to not get bored. And I don't mean bored like the subject matter I'm writing about is boring. It's not. I'm passionate about it. I wouldn't do it otherwise. To wake up every day and do the exact same thing. I take my dog on a walk. I listen to the prior episodes, not out of like being a narcissist and liking how I sound, but to come up with an idea of what to write about. I have the same thing for breakfast every day, coffee at the same time, and then I sit down and write. And like I said, I don't have anything till 1 p.m. And just being with yourself and trying to come up with something that's great, you can start to think like, oh, there are people waking up this morning doing things that are way more exciting than me, or they're closing deals, or they're selling companies like I used to do. But like, I know that I create a lot of value doing this and I do enjoy it, but I can't get shiny object syndrome or feel FOMO. So I think next year it's just not getting bored, being okay with repeating the day to day.
Well, it sounds like you're very comfortable with like certain schedules and things being regimented like a good finance person would be. I'm so new to this that I am not at risk of getting bored anytime soon. I am at risk of like being overcommitted. I have this vision for a flywheel between the consulting and advising work I'm doing and how that's going to drive better writing. And then obviously that creates inbound on the consulting and advising standpoint. I want that all to be a flywheel. It's not really a flywheel yet. They're kind of two separate businesses. Writing definitely informs or helps, create leads for me, but they're not as connected as I want them to be. And so that's a goal for next year. I do have to say though, I find the hands-on work such a nice change of pace from writing, because writing, you're like by yourself, you're just looking at your screen, you send something out into the ether, a bunch of people see it, but you don't have that close connection with the audience. And then when you're working on a project or doing some advising with a company, it's all like person to person based, meeting someone in person or via Zoom. Like you get real-time feedback, you're solving something complicated together. And there's really like a community element to it that I like. One thing I just enjoy is the different kinds of energy and kind of breaks up the day to do both things.
Well, the question I'm sure everybody's wondering, Kyle, do you make more doing this than you made in your prior roles?
Oh, yes, I do. It's hard to say like what the value of the equity from VC is, but my goal for next year will be to 3 to 4x my salary where I was in VC.
Yeah. And that was always my rough rule of thumb. If I could make 3 to 4 times as much as I was making before from like a cash comp perspective, I can make up for the equity that you're potentially missing out on. But I've also been at places too where like the equity was basically just a dream and a wish on a piece of paper in a drawer. So chalk that up to whatever you want.
To me, the nice thing is obviously it's like more lucrative than I expected, especially for starting a business like 3 to 4 months ago and have it already be this successful is awesome. And I'm like very grateful for that. The thing for me is how do I keep it growing and making it like recurring revenue? That will just make me feel like there's a lot more predictability and stability to the solopreneur life versus like living and dying on, a single client or something.
When I went all in, I was obsessed with the idea of making sure the subscription revenue from people going paid was enough to cover like groceries and mortgage and stuff. Like I had this mindset of that's my salary essentially. And all the advertising dollars I can use to fund the business, to make sure I have savings in case something goes wrong, etc. What has been the hardest part for me is to change my mind that this is not a subscription business just because it started that way. It is very, very, very much an advertising and ads driven business. So we are ads first. It makes up, if you were to add up across the newsletters, the podcasts, the dinners, the reports, we are more than 90% advertising dollars. But still in the back of my head, being a CFO, I'm like, oh, I love the recurring nature of subscriptions.
I have to say the advertising component, it's the single largest revenue stream for me too.
Well, Kyle, I'm so glad that you said that you would do a podcast with me. I'm hoping you'll show up in 2026. Ben, you've been the biggest unlock joining the show. Are you guys going to hang out with me next year?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Bastards.
I got us advertisers, though. You have to show up.
Oh, true. Then yes.
See you boys then.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production, executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe. Give us 5 stars or hit like. The algorithm overlords thank you. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.